Estamos al aire.
Okay, good morning. Thank you again for being here. This is the last day of our second Research in ELT Congress. Welcome, everybody. Today we are going to be here for a while, but we are going to see who are we going to listen to today. Today we have, first of all, the pre-service teachers research experiences. One student, Yesenia Capera from Universidad La Gran Colombia. We are also going to have Karen Daniela Fino from Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas. And we will listen to Tatiana Sánchez Ramírez from Universidad Libre. There will be also a closing comment. Thank you very much for being here. Guys, we want to say hello to our students who are watching us on Facebook Live. We want to say hello to students of Práctica en Contextos para la Enseñanza del Inglés from Universidad Libre. Hi guys, they are my students. And we also want to greet students from Universidad Distrital from the Language, Culture, and Society subject. Thank you everybody for being here. So we are going to start. Let's get started. Professor, give me a second, please. Professor Carlos Carrillo, could you please introduce the first presenter?
Well, thank you very much, Professor Valencia, and good morning to you and to all of our attendees today. Well, let's going to start with Yesenia Capera. It's a pre-service teacher from La Gran Colombia University. Thanks for being here. Well, she is a member also of the International Language Teachers Association, ELT. She has published even a chapter of a book, and now is here with us to talk about crystallized intelligence in EFL. Crossing the boundaries of cognitive disability. Yesenia, thank you very much for being with us. We are all yours.
Thank you, Professor Carlos. So, well, it is a great honor to be with you today to share with you the importance of crystallized intelligence in the ELT classroom. I'm Yesenia, I'm from at Universidad La Gran Colombia. I decided to name this presentation Crystallized Intelligence in the ELT classroom. This single case study explored if and how crystallized intelligence adapted EFL lessons, which were implemented in first semester's 100 sessions, might help a student with cognitive disability improved his communicative competence using the foreign language. It explains how crystallized intelligence might facilitate EFL learning and how the student enhances his communicative competence when doing different tasks in the English language courses as intermediate, upper intermediate, and advanced English courses. He improved his communicative competence, taking into account the research qualitative techniques as observations, field notes, interviews to students and teachers, research quantitative techniques as pre-test and post-test, which were useful to study the student's emotion and his perspective about his own learning experience. which is composed by 7 emerged categories. I decided to name them. The first one is Sebastian. Sebastian is the name that I will use from this point to protect his identity. Sebastian gets familiar with the language, items, and meanings. This steps is knowing my knowledge. The second one is study them until he understands the purposes of the topics without losing the original meanings, deepening in my knowledge. Understand the practice and learning with motivation, learning and enjoying my context. Adjust and control the pedagogical structure of upper intermediate content, creating my own teaching material. The third is maintain a conversation with the similar languages and contents in real communication based on his own experiences, facing up my own experiences. And the last one is learner can choose the topic that is actually happened in his life, EFL, my main motivation. After the analysis, I believe that crystallized intelligence not only improved here the language learning, but also boost the learning in more general terms. First, I'm going to explain the research process, which is the base for this presentation. As already told you, it's a qualitative study that reports a teaching experience that addresses difficulties learning English as a foreign language with a student who has cognitive disability. The participant of this study is named Sebastian, with some specific characteristics. He is almost to finish his studies in BD of English at Universidad de la Gran Colombia. He lives with his twins brother, who is 22 years old, and his parents live in the south of Bogotá, in a low stratum, in Lucero Bajo, Ciudad Bolívar. He attended to five or six schools in his learning process. His parents used to bother him because he didn't have the same characteristics to learn, and he had difficulties expressing his thoughts and words. His learning process was difficult, and even more difficult when he had to study English as a part of his career. He mentioned that to learn a language is really hard, but with the help of some teachers, he approved his academic courses. Sebastian, who was diagnosed with cognitive disability and his struggle learning English as a foreign language, it involved an adaptation process of teaching activities tailored for his special needs by using crystallized intelligence enhancement. Crystallized intelligence is understood as the ability to acquire new information that has been acquired during lifetime through fluid intelligence and the ability to extract the meaning of the text. Here we can observe those three stages. Stage one, which is need analysis. In this stage, I use 5 different data collection tools to identify the student's main difficulties in his language learning process for adapting teaching materials based on crystallized intelligence. The first was a researcher's observation journal. The second was the English course curriculum, and the third was a medical diagnosis. The second one is adaptation of teaching materials. In this stage, I use an interview applied to a teacher working with Sebastian, and also working on cognitive development in children with cognitive disability. This interview let me establish the theoretical connections between crystallized intelligence and language development among people with cognitive disability. After that, the researcher also documented on crystallized intelligence, cognitive disability, and language learning to define an intervention route and to adapt the teaching materials. And the last one, the stage number 3, intervention assessment. In this stage, I used anecdotes and reports to examine the impact and effectiveness of the adaptation of EFL teaching materials based on crystallized intelligence in the learning process of a student with cognitive disability by contrasting pre-test and post-test results. The American Association of Mental Retardation has defined cognitive disability as substantial limitations in the physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development. It is characterized by less than average intellectual, along with associated limitations in 2 or more of the following adaptive skill areas: communication, personal care, home life, social skills, community use, self-government, health and safety, academic functional skills, common difficulties in the language area for students with cognitive disability. Likewise, there are some difficulties in some concepts of linguistic branches linguistics. Pre-linguistic communication, delay in the development of communicative gestures and communicative interaction. Phonology and articulation, delay in phonological development and delay in the mental representation of sounds. Conceptual lexicon, it's one of the best developed. The number of words is equivalent to his mental age. They prefer categorizations, but their levels of hierarchy and their relationships between categories are less complete. Morphology strongly affected difficulties in understanding verbal times properly. Syntax, difficulties in production as in comprehension, produce simple sentences, little frequency of compounds. Pragmatics, a strong point. People with mental disabilities can hold a conversation, but there are some difficulties to produce and understand indirect speech acts. The English material of the courses, intermediate, upper intermediate, and advanced English courses were adjusted with the real experience of the student, including students' pictures doing the activities, actions to be taught, as you can see in this bird. English topics and cognitive disability difficulties related to the above mentioned language area were addressed. Based on the previous concepts and Sebastian's learning process, I decided to work on conceptual lexicon and pragmatics. These were the main branches to develop in every single session. Conceptual lexicon and pragmatics were developed to a higher degree compared to the other concepts in this study, since they are language skills articulated with learning in school and they have a direct application in daily life, as you can see in this picture of phrasal verb take up. Based on the findings, I adjusted the contents of English courses of intermediate, upper intermediate, and advanced English courses through pictures related to his real experience in his lifetime. This facilitated the adaptation of teaching materials of Sebastian in his lifetime. This facilitated the adaptation of teaching for Sebastian and the teachers. Each session was focused on cognitive development, language development, social and emotional development per week. Hence, there are 3 methods to teach students with special needs, specifically students with cognitive disability. We have to take into account these 3 methods to teach students with cognitive disability. The first one is explicit teaching. The purpose of explicit teaching is to provide guided instruction in the basic understanding or giving skills students profit from learning through practice, collaboration, repetition, developmental play, and activities. The second one, multisensory teaching programs are designed to enable learners to grasp knowledge using not one of their sense or channels. The third one, metacognitive or metalinguistic, can help students to learn how to take control. So, as the results of this study, crystallized intelligence increases with age. Crystallized intelligence prioritizes prior learning. Crystallized intelligence considers the student's past experiences. Crystallized intelligence is based on facts. And finally, crystallized intelligence works on the meaning of the text. And that's it.
Well, okay. Thank you very much, Yesenia, for sharing your research experience here with us. Now, there are some questions we have for you from our attendees. And please, you all who are looking at us right now, if you have questions, please, you can just tap them there in YouTube and we're going to be adding them here. Well, the first one is, how should a teacher plan classes in regards of disability while living this lockdown?
Teachers must take into account the 3 methods that I already mentioned, and the teacher, not only teachers of English, but also teachers of different academic courses must know his or her special needs in order to adapt materials and then having meaningful learning for students who have cognitive disability.
Well, okay, thank you. We have another question here. Is crystallized intelligence related to Gardner's multiple intelligences? How?
It's more with Vygotsky and Piaget, because they talk about meaningful learning, and the learning must be in class and with collaboration, with cooperative learning. But if you can use multiple intelligences, you can do it if, as already told you, you must know and study the difficulties or the difficulties of your student with a specific special need.
Okay, and the last one. Are language teachers responsible of adapting the corresponding material to each case of disability, or it is the school or the expert of inclusion in each case?
It depends on, because, for instance, in my case, the university didn't or doesn't have courses in order to train teachers to adapt this kind of materials. And but it depends on, in my case, it was depend on me, because my first issue was to help to Sebastian in order to learn and teach English. But it depends on I think it depends on you, because if the institutions doesn't have the tools to help those students, it depends on your vocation and to be a teacher.
Well, okay, thank you very much. Yesenia, well, we have one more question, sorry. It is, what recommendations can you give to other pre-service teachers attempting to research a similar topic?
um, there are not studies related to this topic. In fact, there are studies based on teaching mathematics with and cognitive disability, but crystallized intelligence related to English for people who have cognitive disability, there are not more, or there are not many, sorry. But I read many books about crystallized intelligence, and I took steps in order to help him. And as already told you, to know his difficulties in English language courses.
Well, thank you very much again for being here with us, La Gran Colombia University. And now it is time to continue with the Distrital University, right, Professor Natra?
That's totally right, my dear Carlos Carrillo. Thank you so much. Great presentation, Yesenia. Congratulations. It is a very interesting topic that definitely all of us have to be like knowledgeable about. Okay, thank you so much. So now we'll continue with Karen Daniela Finortiz from Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas. Her talk is entitled The Construction of EFL Multicultural Classroom by Colombian and Venezuelan Learners. So, dear Karen, off you go.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I want to make sure that you listen to me well before I start.
Yes, we can listen to you very well. One moment, Geraldine, please stop sharing the screen. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Very good. So let me take this out. So thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here. And well, this is a pleasure for me. I hope that you like the topic. So well, let's start. The name of my project in behalf of Distrital University is the construction of an EFL multicultural classroom by Colombian and Venezuelan students. Well, the purpose, or let's say the reason, are many involved in Colombian academic context nowadays. The keywords of this project are multicultural classroom, multicultural education, cultural encounters, social interaction, and cultural perspectives. And then, well, the objectives of this project is first of all to analyze the multicultural phenomena of an EFL multicultural classroom, of course, between Colombian and Venezuelan students. The specific objectives are to identify patterns in students' cultural encounters, to determine students' attitudes about those cultural encounters, and finally, to analyze the students' perspectives about the multicultural classroom. So, well, the main purpose and well, the main question that you may be asking yourself is why I decided to use and to start this research. There are four main reasons. The first one is the growing amount of Venezuelan immigrants in Colombia. Secondly, the novelty of this phenomenon in Colombian academic context. Third, the social difference that seems to appear between Colombian and Venezuelan students. And finally, the homeroom teachers' concern about how to assist these immigrant students. So let's go one by one so you can see where do I take them from. So first of all is the growing amount of immigrant students. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, over 4 million Venezuelans have left their country up to date, and making this among one of the biggest recent displacement crises after Syria, according to the UNO. Colombia has received in this process of migration around 900,000 migrators. And also by WIS 2019, we can claim that 1.2 million of Venezuelans are now living in Colombia, and this year by year and day by day is growing. well, this talking about general statistics about full Colombia, but what if we go deeper into the system of education? So according to the CIMA, that is Sistema de Matrícula Estudiantil de Educación Básica y Media, we can see in this simple graphic how the amount of students, Venezuelan students, is growing every month, every single month. We can say, for example, by 2018, in November, there were only, let's say, 34,030 students. But look at the amount and the way it is growing month by month. We can say that by last year, 2019 in March, there were 147,624 students. And the last statistics and numbers that we have is June 2019. There were 181,421 Venezuelan students in Colombian schools. These statistics in regards of full Colombia, but let's see now what's going on in Bogota, our city. So in here, you can also see how this amount is not only growing, but every month is like doubling itself. So we have here that in 2018, there were only 1,019 students. But look at this, for example, by February last year, there were 19,622. And the last number we got was in May 31st last year too. And there were 23,366 students in Colombia, and especially here in Bogota. So we can see that this let's say this amount is growing and growing every month. And what if we talk about a little bit all of those children who are born in Colombia? We have seen in news, and also if we read the newspaper, and also statistics show it, that there was a new law in Colombia that support and cover all of those children and also their parents. For example, this law specifically covered from January, all the children born from January 2015 up to date. And there is like a number that shows that around 27,000 babies, Venezuelan babies, are born in Colombia since that year and month. So as soon as they have the opportunity, those children will enter to the system of education. So we can see that Venezuelan learners are a lot. Secondly is the novelty of this phenomenon. First of all, because Colombia hasn't faced that migration in terms of international, because we know there are many cultures inside, but not such international migration. Also because it was forced. And something that I regarded was that teachers, specifically in public schools, that is where this study was carried out, are not teachers and researchers at the same time. They are just teachers following like a curriculum, a syllabus, but they don't research inside the school. Well, the third reason is the different social backgrounds that may appear between Colombian and Venezuelan learners. According to Rees 2006, cultural encounters may lead to different, let's say, negative consequences, such as xenophobe, dark humor, violence, threats, even rejection. And I could notice that in my group, in my second grade, because one Venezuelan learner mentioned that when he worked in groups with Colombian learners, they kicked him off the group. They didn't want to work with him. So it is a fact, we cannot deny it. And finally, the homeroom teachers, I interviewed them in September 2019, and the question was, what do you think is the topic that deserves and needs research in Colombia? And their answer was, on one hand, related to social networks, and on the other hand, Venezuelan migration and how this is affecting Colombian classroom and how to approach it. So there are several reasons for this research. Then in my literature review, it is basically based in multicultural classroom issues, perspectives, advantages, and disadvantages. For example, this is something that is not happening, obviously, only in Colombia. According to the UNHCR, some refugee children may suffer from stress, trauma, preventing them from participating fully in school activities. On the other hand, we have one study developed in the Netherlands. It was in 2004. They mentioned that society in the Netherlands is evolving from homogeneous monoculture to heterogeneous multicultural society. Russell as well was a study developed in Australia and found that out of 600 students, 41% of them suffer stress, and this could be led by homesickness, cultural shocks, and discrimination. We also have Benedictson, that was an Icelandic study in 2019. They interview many, well, students about how they felt with multicultural classrooms. And some of them mentioned that it was super beneficial, useful, and that contributes to them, to their adaptation to the environment. But in the other hand, we have that some prefer not to work with the local peers because, especially here in Iceland, they push them away because they don't have such high levels of proficiency in the language. As well, Firth and Ibarrola, 2007, mentioned that teachers need. It is not that want or could be, but need, in fact, educational strategies to deal with multicultural populations. But even though they have it, as shown in Holly, 2019, teachers, even though may have, let's say, training in multicultural education and multicultural traits, they still cannot prevent or cannot see foretold, let's say, the results that some conflicts may have inside the classroom due to this international presence of the students. Then the main constructs of this research are three: cultural encounter, multicultural education, and cultural threats. I based on some authors to define those key concepts. So I have Banks and NCATE. They mentioned that multicultural education is an idea, a concept, a movement, and a preparation that leads to social realities. It is not only placed in academic environments, but also works as a public means that serves to provide equity, interactions, and tools. Related to cultural encounters, Campina, Bacote, Rees, and Lofton mentioned that cultural encounters are meetings, interactions, or confrontation, and there are two possible options, like such positive, like prevent differentiation, prevent stereotypes, or otherwise it could have negative results, for example, conflict and differentiation between one and others. And finally, cultural traits are defined as characteristic patterns in thoughts, beliefs, emotions, behaviors of a culture. Culture represents socially transmitted ideas, knowledge, structures about the world, including norms, values, or beliefs. Well, taking into account these constructs, let me talk to you about the population I worked with. So it was a public school in Bogota. It was not a high income school, it was otherwise a low income. There were 69 students divided into grades, 5th grade and 2nd grade. The students from 5th grade were around 10 to 12 years old, and the 2nd graders were from 7 to 8 years old. Out of those 69 students, I had 14 Venezuelan learners and 55 Colombian learners. And some of the data collection instruments I used and I need to use because this research was stopped due to COVID. So are surveys, observations, and field notes. Related to data analysis, it is worth mentioning that it is not finished. I think I just started, so you will not see like such real and fact results, but well, I am still on the process of getting them. I tried to use actual coding that is based in 3 steps: open codes, actual codes, and selective codes. This is of course a qualitative research. And based on Maxwell, the importance of qualitative is that it approaches the participants' concepts and beliefs. And according to Delman, I tried my best to avoid discriminatory language, like different like words that may feel the Venezuelan rejected or otherwise Colombian. These are some of the questions that I asked the students. So the first one was, how is it studying with foreign students? And as you can see here, their answer, of course, in Spanish. I had 4 categories, like positive, funny, regular, and negative. So some of them mentioned like, yes, working multiculturally is amazing. I like it. It is super funny. Some of them mentioned like, kind of, I don't feel so good. But 2 of the students mentioned like, it is horrible. I don't like it at all. So I have so diverse answers in the surveys I applied. Related to the second question, I have, what have you learned with them or about them? Colombians, what have you learned about Venezuelan, and Venezuelan, what have you learned about Colombians? Some of the concepts that I got from here, the properties were friendship, respect, aid, dialect, resilience, cultural, and negative. It was kind of, well, I was amazed because you think that they will reject as adults, as we do, but otherwise they find positive things in those multicultural encounters. For example, they think that friendship is something that they have learned in these encounters. Respect, some of them like, yes, I have learned to be respectful. I have learned not to fight anymore. Related to aid, that they help, that they cooperate one each other. Dialect was like one of the most curious things I found because they differentiate Venezuelan accent than Colombian accent. Resilience, it was quite beautiful to see how Colombians have learned that Venezuelans are, let's say, have a lot of courage and brave, and they have been working and, let's say, migrating, and they are still in the school. So they have learned many positive things. Related to cultural, like food, places, and finally, as in all of the question, negative aspects. Like, no, they are super tough, they are rude, I don't like working with them. Moving to the next question was, what do you have in common and what you don't? And it was quite interesting to analyze what the students think, because some of the main key concepts that they differentiate is accent. Like Venezuelans have different words, different accent, they have different expressions, and Colombians, we speak different. Related to race, they differentiate between race, like they are darker skin, even though we have all of the races in Colombia, they found some things related to the skin, the race, as well negative things, as I told you in all of the questions, like no, they are messy, they are disorganized, they are untidy, they are negative things. And finally, 3 students mentioned like, there is nothing like we are the same thing. Okay, the next question was, do you work in teams with them? I have 51 affirmative answers, like yes, I do it and I like it. Negative, no, I don't. And 4 answers that mention, I do it because I have to, but I don't enjoy doing that. And well, they mentioned their reasons, as you can see a little bit here in their answers. And this was a quite interesting question. I asked the Venezuelan learners, like, do you prefer classes in Colombia or in your country? And even though they were just 14, 2 didn't answer. They feel like, so I will not answer that question to you. But 9 mentioned that they prefer classes in Colombia because they are more interesting, they learn more, and they are not punished all of the time as they used to be there in Venezuela. And 3 of them mentioned that they prefer going back and have the classes there because they feel more comfortable there and because they are not that difficult as in Colombia. So they think Colombian education is difficult. And finally, related to the observation I did, it was the 31st of October. It was mentioning because it was the Halloween day, and this interfered a lot. Why? Because that was the day of the English exam, and many of them did not attend the class. And I asked all of the guys, and one Venezuelan took the voice and said, they don't come because they don't celebrate Halloween. We don't. He was Venezuelan. We don't celebrate Halloween in Venezuela. Then they don't understand what Halloween is, so they decided not to come. So I saw that cultural aspects are interfering in pedagogical matters because they don't understand how culture works here, and the same way we don't understand how culture works there. Related to pedagogical features, they didn't understand the exam, they didn't ask for help, not even teacher, not even partners, they didn't keep the pace. Related to emotional, this same student, he gave me all of the information I got of this observation. He mentioned that he was sad because another Venezuelan learner had left and he was sad. So I see that they feel, especially Venezuelan, feel super affected when one Venezuelan learner left the school because they feel like they are not receiving support. So emotional things are also involved. Related to familiar, it was quite interesting because this Venezuelan guy also mentioned like, I am the oldest in my family. And I say, you are the oldest? I can't believe it. But he was talking about that he's the oldest in knowledge. He is the one who came to Colombia first. So he is the one guiding his family, his mother, his father, as you can see here. He mentioned, nobody knows Bogota, I know it. Then I see that Venezuelan learners are acquiring responsibility of adults, and they're quite young. They were in 2nd grade. So this is not time for that. And well, finally, the findings, as I told you, this is a researching process. This is not finished. As I told you, this is just a start. But up to this moment, I have found different things. Like, first of all, most of them like working in multicultural classrooms. 50 mentioned, yes, I like it. On the other hand, 7 mentioned they didn't. Secondly, most of Venezuelan learners prefer studying in Colombia. They have learned together about different positive aspects like friendship, respect, resilience, and aid. The only differences they found between one another is race and dialect. They don't see such a great difference as we adults may see. Fifth, familiar and cultural, emotional, and pedagogical field is being affected in migrators. Time is over? Okay. And finally, well, the conclusions.
Yes,
Difficult to get conclusions. Let me finish with the conclusions. But I just think that most of the students do not feel multicultural classroom is affecting them as we think. I also realized that teachers' concerns are more related to pedagogical aspects, but not really to students' encounters. And in conclusion, yes, there should be further research. This is not enough, and there wouldn't be enough research about it. And well, thank you for your time. I was just on time. Sorry for that.
Great presentation. Congratulations, dear Karen. We are so happy listening to a presentation or a research study that takes into account different aspects from just having working on the skills, how to improve writing with, how to improve listening with. So thank you so much for your representation. We have some questions in here. Number one, why do you refer to multicultural instead of intercultural?
I really love this question because many teachers have been against me saying, this is just two cultures. And I decided to use multicultural because when I applied the surveys, I asked them like, do you have students from other countries in your classroom? And many of them said like, yes, from Cartagena, from Boyacá, from Santa Marta, from Chocó. So I realized that for them, multicultural is not only students from other countries, but even in Colombia, but different departments, different cities. So I definitely try to feel what the students feel, and I try to include multicultural because this is what they see, even though I saw something different.
Very interesting information. Thank you so much. That's totally right. Okay. Another question in here is, what are the features of emergent variables from data collection?
As you mentioned, variables, many, because it is difficult to create only one path, like saying most of them did this. So I think that it is quite difficult. With the process, I realized that qualitative research is more difficult than quantitative because you cannot get numbers from this. You cannot get 1 with 2, 3 with 4, but this is going deeper into students' feelings, perspectives. So up to this moment, I wouldn't dare to say I have this and those are the variables and this is done. So I think that this needs further research in order to get the answer fully correct. I wouldn't dare to answer that question, definitely.
Okay, thank you so much. Here we have some questions on YouTube. Angela Villarreal is asking, what is the relationship between multiculturalism and human rights?
Because when there are multicultural encounters, it is the time when students can show the human rights they respect. I think that if, for example, now in COVID, I am at home, so I don't have the chance to show the human rights or the human values I have. And I don't have the chance to interact with other people that may challenge those human rights. But in these multicultural classrooms, this is where the contact between what you think, how I talk, your race, my race, your feelings, my feelings. This is the time when human rights are involved. I need to respect, tolerate, be patient. This is where human rights are involved because multicultural encounters may lead, as I showed, based on many authors and also based on my own experience. Multicultural encounters are the opportunity for the students to show the human rights they have and the human rights they want to respect.
Awesome answer. Thank you so much. In here, Vanessa Varela is asking, how did you avoid discrimination in your classroom?
Quite difficult, but I think that I remember one lesson plan I used and I talked about countries. And immediately I tried to involve, of course, Venezuela. I was talking all about regions of Colombia. And I remember I have several students from Venezuela, so I included them. And one student mentioned like, teacher, why do you include Venezuela? We are in Colombia. And immediately I think that being the example to follow is the best way. Like, no, we have students from different departments, from different countries, so we have to include them all. And also remember a bad experience, let's say, it was in 10th grade. I was talking about adjectives, thin, small, fat, whatever. And when I showed a picture of thin, the students said like Venezuelan. And I felt really bad. And I said, no, this couldn't happen anymore in the class. So that day, immediately I start a reflection. So I think that the best way is being a good example, that they see you are not discriminating between one and others, and also trying to lead different and several discussions about multiculturalism, differences, tolerance in the classroom.
Okay. And here we have another question that is kind of related to the one you just answered by Lynette Gomez. And here it says, what is the role in social media to avoid dark humor and discrimination against foreign students?
What is the role of social media or social networks?
Social media, this person is saying.
Quite important. I think that rather than stopping discrimination through social media is prompting and promoting that. But I think we have to select the content. If we select the content properly, if we want to use the tools we have, not for saying like, how many robberies have been happened in Colombia, how many problems have been happening in Venezuela, we can search for positive things like how Venezuelan rights are being involved, how multiculturalism, the topic of the research, is improving, which authors support and guide me to apply a lesson plan that involves all of human rights. So I think it is about selecting the content, and we as teachers have the role of showing them how the content should be helpful and useful for avoiding discrimination.
Okay, thank you so much. Karen Agudelo is asking, what advice or piece of advice do you give to future teachers who will face a foreign population?
I will advise like keep into account all of them in your lesson plans. Of course, you are the one leading the class and you have an advantage there. So every time you design something, take into account everything. Venezuela, not only Venezuela itself, but as we take into account Colombia, within these different departments, take Venezuela and research about it, like which departments they have. And well, related to all of multiculturalism, discussions, reflective pedagogy, and not only being teachers because of teaching and money, but teacher and researchers. So read further, and at the same time you are teaching, try to research and try to see how other countries have managed this multicultural population. I will say that. Okay. Too many questions? Oh.
Yeah, and they all are very interesting. The last one. Let me see. In here, Angela is asking, how can the youth contribute towards strengthening togetherness in a multicultural society?
Okay, youth. I will say that this question is good, but you tell me youth, like youth in the classroom, high school students, youth outside, youth in the neighborhood. So I will try to give a general answer as the question was. Youth, the same way. Be the example to follow. That will be the first approach. And secondly, like all of the questions are interrelated, related to social media. I think that youth is the population that use social media the most. So they have the chance to select the content and show them to their nephews, nieces, children if they have cousins. And children are the ones, as I showed in the research, they don't see the difference. They don't feel like they are different with Venezuelan. We adults, we think we are. So children are with a super elastic brain. So it's the time to show them like we are the same. Yes, we have strengths and weaknesses, but it's the time that youth and children and youth that are usually the example that children follow, take those advantages and those means to, let's say, to reinforce those multicultural skills. Nowadays, those are skills and abilities that we need to develop. It is not a matter of if we want or if we want to discriminate or not. We need. This is what globalization has caused in our world.
Okay, dear, thank you so much. There are more questions, but Karen, I really invite you to go to the YouTube Live so that you can answer the questions in there, okay? And
Okay.
again, congratulations. I think Professor Carlos Carrillo wants to tell you something.
Well, I just want to say, well, congrats. You did a really great presentation, and I knew it. Yes, from the very beginning, I told you you were an excellent pre-service teacher, and you would be a wonderful professional. So thank you for being here with us and for sharing this experience you have been working on. Okay, thank you very much, Daniela.
Welcome, teacher. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Ok, gracias a todos. Bueno, ahora vamos a ver una presentación en nuestra lengua materna, pero antes que nada darles las gracias a los estudiantes y a los profesores que nos están viendo de la Universidad de Gran Colombia, también a los profesores y estudiantes de la Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas, de la materia Language, Culture and Society, y también queremos agradecer a los estudiantes de la Universidad Libre que están aquí también apoyando a sus compañeros de la asignatura Práctica en Contextos para la Enseñanza del Inglés. Ahora vamos a ver una presentación de la casa, una estudiante, Tatiana Sánchez Ramírez. Tatiana pertenece al grupo didácticos, al grupo de investigación didácticos, y ha sido una estudiante muy destacada durante nuestra carrera. Tatiana va a hacer su presentación en español y pues ella les va a compartir su trabajo. Ella decidió inclinarse por el campo del francés, entonces demos la bienvenida y el paso a Tatiana.
Muchas gracias, profe. Buenos días a todos. Voy a intentar entonces compartir mi pantalla. ¿Se puede visualizar bien el contenido?
Perfectamente.
Perfecto.
Ok, listo. Bien. Buenos días para todos. Mi nombre es Tatiana Sánchez. Hago parte del semillero de investigación didácticos de la Universidad Libre y me complace mucho compartir con ustedes mi proyecto de investigación que se titula El rol del aprendizaje invertido en el desarrollo del componente léxico en francés lengua extranjera de los estudiantes de los cursos de extensión de la Universidad Libre nivel A1. Mi directora y asesora de tesis fue la profesora Clara Isabel Onatra. Bien, el problema surge de un proceso de observación participativa que se realizó en los cursos de extensión. Estos fueron registrados en 2 diarios de campo y se evidenció en primer lugar que los estudiantes, bueno, no comprendían cuando se les hablaba en francés, durante las clases hacían uso extendido del español y cuando se les solicitaba que intentaran replantear sus ideas en la lengua extranjera, ellos se bloqueaban y respondían que no sabían cómo decir las cosas. Acá tenemos un ejemplo de una estudiante que mencionó: quisiera saber más vocabulario y hablar más. Esto permitió identificar que la mayor dificultad para el desarrollo del carácter comunicativo del curso era el desconocimiento del componente léxico por parte de los estudiantes. Para poder corroborar esta información, se aplicó una encuesta a manera de cuestionario donde se indagaba sobre las dificultades en el aprendizaje de los estudiantes y a la pregunta ¿qué es lo que más les impide intentar comunicarse en francés? Ellos respondieron mayoritariamente que la escasez de vocabulario y expresiones en la lengua. Por esto se propuso un trabajo orientado a responder a dicha necesidad a partir del enfoque del aprendizaje invertido como una alternativa a este modelo tradicional que venían trabajando. De allí surge la pregunta de investigación: ¿de qué manera contribuye el aprendizaje invertido al desarrollo del componente léxico en FLE de los estudiantes de los cursos de extensión de la Universidad Libre nivel A1? El objetivo general fue determinar la incidencia de la implementación del aprendizaje invertido en el desarrollo del componente léxico en FLE de los estudiantes de los cursos de extensión de la Universidad Libre nivel A1, y para esto se formularon 3 objetivos específicos. El primero fue identificar el grado de conocimiento léxico en FLE de los estudiantes antes de iniciar la intervención y después de ella. El segundo fue promover el aprendizaje del componente léxico en FLE a partir del diseño de actividades basadas en el modelo de aprendizaje invertido. Y el tercero fue evaluar la efectividad de la implementación del aprendizaje invertido en el desarrollo del componente léxico en FLE. Estos son algunos de los antecedentes que involucraron estudios previos sobre estos temas, pero hay que resaltar que todos fueron de manera separada, ninguno se integraron. En el marco teórico contamos con dos constructos, por un lado el léxico y vocabulario y por el otro aprendizaje invertido. Lo primero que se realiza es una precisión de los términos léxico y vocabulario, ya que están muy relacionados y que hay autores como Geneviève Peter del barrio de La Rosa que los diferencian. Ellos conciben el léxico como todos los vocablos que están compuestos no solo por palabras, sino combinaciones de estas y están disponibles en una lengua, mientras que el vocabulario es aquel repertorio de palabras con significado establecido que un usuario reconoce y utiliza efectivamente durante el habla. Sin embargo, quienes desarrollan teorías sobre este aspecto y sobre la enseñanza del mismo, como Lewis y Thornbury, no realizan distinción alguna en los términos y en sus libros pues los abordan de manera equivalente. Ya respecto al léxico en el desarrollo del lenguaje, Castañeda destaca que durante el proceso de adquisición de la lengua materna, lo primero que se manifiesta en el niño son palabras a las que él atribuye algún significado. Esto demuestra que lo primero que se ha de consolidar es justamente esta competencia léxica. Esta es definida por el Instituto Cervantes como la habilidad de entender un conjunto de conceptos que se encuentran disponibles en nuestra mente. Finalmente, en este constructo, Nation y Thornbury brindan algunas pautas sobre la enseñanza del vocabulario en la lengua extranjera y nos indican que consta de un proceso de 3 etapas, en que se da primero un reconocimiento del vocabulario, luego una recuperación del mismo para poder llegar al uso generativo y creativo. Y destacan la importancia de lo que denominan la repetición espaciada. Ya en el aprendizaje invertido, nuestros pioneros Berman y Sams lo definen como un enfoque pedagógico en el cual tanto la secuencia o las fases de la clase y los roles del docente y del estudiante se intercambian. Esto consiste en trasladar la parte de la explicación e introducción de los contenidos a un espacio denominado el espacio individual de aprendizaje, para que el espacio grupal de los encuentros ahora se pueda aprovechar para la aplicación de actividades prácticas en las que ahora el estudiante es el centro. Estas tienen un corte cooperativo y aquí lo que se busca es que el estudiante aplique los contenidos para que pueda consolidar sus aprendizajes. La red de aprendizaje invertido nos establece 4 pilares para una aplicación efectiva de este modelo. Estas son un ambiente flexible, la cultura de aprendizaje, los contenidos dirigidos y el educador profesional. El enfoque metodológico de este estudio fue el cualitativo, de acuerdo con Sampieri, Fernández y Baptista, ya que se buscó observar y reconstruir una realidad tal cual es, y porque en estudios de corte humanístico, como en este caso, se permite hacer un análisis de datos mucho más profundo. El tipo de investigación es investigación-acción, de acuerdo con Richards y Lockhart, ya que se identificó un problema, se planteó una acción, se puso en práctica y así pues se buscó transformar el fenómeno dentro del aula. Los instrumentos utilizados fueron diarios de campo, un cuestionario encuesta, el pre y el post-test, y unos formularios de entry y exit ticket. La población fue un grupo de francés de nivel A1, de 19 estudiantes en un rango de edad de 17 a 60 años. La muestra de 5 estudiantes tuvo un criterio de selección de tipo no probabilístico por conveniencia, como lo indican Hernández, Fernández y Baptista, ya que se tuvo en cuenta su disponibilidad de acceso, que en este caso fue la regularidad de su asistencia, porque no se contaba pues con los instrumentos de todos los estudiantes y era necesario para poder hacer un análisis de datos apropiado. La propuesta pedagógica se encuentra resumida en este cuadro. Aquí se muestra la consecución de las clases, los recursos empleados y los instrumentos. Para la implementación se tuvo en cuenta en el espacio individual de aprendizaje los videos explicativos. Algunos de ellos fueron diseñados por la docente y otros fueron seleccionados de hablantes nativos con el fin de que los estudiantes adaptaran su oído a ellos, y la plataforma de Quizlet para la práctica, de manera que los estudiantes se prepararan antes del encuentro presencial. Este espacio grupal de aprendizaje daba inicio con la actividad de entry ticket denominada la caja de palabras, en que los estudiantes, al azar, escogían de una cajita una papeleta con algún elemento del vocabulario a trabajar, y con este construían una frase propia, pasaban al tablero y se procedía a realizar una retroalimentación inmediata que se hacía con todo el grupo y entre sus compañeros mismos se corregían. Seguidamente se realizaba un espacio para que ellos resolvieran sus dudas respecto a los temas preparados. Se daba paso también a 2 o 3 actividades prácticas más, pero que ahora involucraban todas las competencias comunicativas, y se finalizaba con el diligenciamiento de un formulario de exit ticket en que los estudiantes registraban los aprendizajes que habían tenido durante esa lección. Esto se consignó en diarios de campo y el proceso dio fin con la aplicación del post-test. El análisis de resultados se realizó a la luz del análisis temático de acuerdo con Brown, Victoria y Gallardo. Aquí vemos el proceso de codificación, de donde se obtuvieron los temas principales, de los cuales los más importantes fueron léxico, vocabulario y aprendizaje invertido. Un primer hallazgo en los datos fue que se logró consolidar un ambiente flexible, en primer lugar porque se dieron distintas modalidades de trabajo, que fue en equipos, por parejas, individual o en conjunto con el grupo completo. Esto permitía que los estudiantes tuvieran opciones para trabajar de acuerdo a sus ritmos, a sus formas de aprendizaje y se sintieran cómodos. Además, como se visualizan las imágenes, habían espacios distintos como el aula de clase, al aire libre o los laboratorios de idiomas. También se encontró que se pudo establecer una cultura de aprendizaje porque los estudiantes comenzaron a trabajar de manera cooperativa. Acá tenemos un ejemplo de cuando un estudiante pasó al tablero y se bloqueó, entonces dice, sus compañeros le pronunciaban para que ella a partir de esto intentara escribir las palabras que no recordaba y al final tuvo fallos, pero logró hacer una oración completa. Adicional, como se evidencia en este segundo fragmento, ellos comenzaron a aplicar lo estudiado, estaban muy activos en las clases y demostraban estar apropiados con los temas. El contenido dirigido eran los campos semánticos que se estaban introduciendo por medio de las plataformas de los recursos y los materiales. Respecto a los videos y la plataforma de Quizlet, los estudiantes tuvieron una recepción positiva, ellos decían que les gustaba. Acá, bueno, tenemos un ejemplo en el que dice que el video es una buena forma para aprender la lengua y el Quizlet y el material les permitía comprender y estudiar los temas. En relación con el rol del docente, se encontraron referencias de su función en las clases, en el aula. Se realizaban constantemente recorridos por los grupos, resolviendo dudas, explicando errores particulares y dando retroalimentación inmediata, todo lo que tiene que ver con acompañamiento constante durante las clases y las actividades. Pero previo a las clases también, pues esto tiene que ver con toda la parte de planeación, selección o diseño de materiales. Por último, en este tema, se evidenció que los estudiantes lograron poner en práctica procesos cognitivos de nivel superior de la taxonomía de Bloom, porque como evidenciamos acá, ellos en el transcurso de las clases comenzaron a construir frases más coherentes, relacionaban los temas, los procesos de corrección eran muy reflexivos, ellos mismos identificaban sus errores y se corregían. Esto lo que demuestra entonces es que ellos no se quedaban solamente en las fases de comprensión y memorización de los contenidos, sino que además de esto los analizaban, los aplicaban, evaluaban y creaban con ellos. En el tema del léxico y vocabulario, las muestras más contundentes fueron los resultados del pre y el post-test que se evidencian en esta tabla. El pre-test, bueno, en este nadie del grupo logró resolver más del 26% de la prueba y todos tuvieron unos resultados muy bajos, en promedio de 4 a 7 puntos sobre 50. Ya después de la intervención y con el post-test, el 100% de los estudiantes demostró haber incrementado sus conocimientos en el campo léxico y acá visualizamos un gráfico donde se muestra el progreso que fue exactamente de un 63,6%. Además de esto, se pudieron llevar a cabo los procesos que Nation y Thornbury recomiendan, la etapa de reconocimiento y recuperación específicamente durante el proceso, durante el espacio individual de aprendizaje, en la explicación de contenidos. Acá los estudiantes mencionaban que esta explicación y toda esta parte era muy clara, ya que se realizaba pues en los videos y podían visualizar tanto la escritura en francés como en español. que en la explicación se proveían ejemplos, podían escuchar la pronunciación y también había imágenes, de manera que ellos tenían distintas opciones para asociar las palabras y sus significados y así poderlas recordar más adelante. Y con el Quizlet practicaban y podían comprender mejor estos contenidos. El uso generativo y creativo del vocabulario se daba durante las clases y todas estas actividades. Acá tenemos algunas evidencias específicamente de la actividad La Caja de Palabras. Acá los estudiantes pues evidentemente tenían que tomar todo este vocabulario, apropiarse de él y ponerlo en uso. Ya la parte de repetición espaciada se dio en distintas oportunidades, primero con la plataforma Quizlet, después de la explicación. Esto ya dependía de ellos, de la cantidad de práctica que tuvieran previo al encuentro, y ya en la clase, en primer lugar con el entry ticket, después con las actividades comunicativas y al final con los exit ticket. Esto fue pues bueno, muy valioso porque por parte de la docente se garantizaban mínimo 5 repeticiones espaciadas y es favorable ya que Nation en su teoría menciona que se requieren de 5 a 7 repeticiones para poder fijar el vocabulario en la mente, y acá los estudiantes lo reconocen diciendo que la repetición es muy importante para aprender. Finalmente, se encontraron evidencias de la aplicación de este contenido y este vocabulario en contexto. Acá hay 2 ejemplos. Durante una clase ellos comenzaron a escribir un diálogo que podía tener lugar en el contexto de una boutique, donde involucraban el vocabulario de la ropa y los accesorios, y en la siguiente clase, durante una actividad oral, ellos comenzaron a describir el atuendo de sus compañeros, para lo cual requirieron pues retomar todo ese vocabulario previo y involucrarlo con el de los colores que estaban trabajando durante esa clase. Bien, todo este material, toda esta información nos permite concluir que la incidencia del modelo pedagógico fue efectivamente favorable, porque el grupo demostró un considerable progreso en la competencia trabajada. Además, se demostró y ratificó que el aprendizaje del vocabulario en el caso de una lengua extranjera no se da de manera inherente, sino que se requiere un tratamiento explícito, cuidadoso y constante en el aula de clase. Además, gracias al aprendizaje invertido que permite la creación de ambientes flexibles, los estudiantes se apropiaron de su propio proceso y afianzaron su autonomía porque requerían estar preparados para poder participar activamente y sacar provecho de los espacios de clase, y asimismo en estos espacios debían y lograron desarrollar la capacidad de construir conocimiento de forma colaborativa. Además, en palabras de ellos mismos, todos los videos y recursos empleados para el trabajo del vocabulario sí facilitaron la apropiación del mismo, al igual que las actividades de clase planeadas bajo los principios del aprendizaje invertido, no solamente por el hecho de que aplicaban los procesos que Nation y Thornbury sugerían, sino que debido a este tema del aprendizaje invertido, se podía realizar un trabajo consciente por parte del estudiante, lo que involucraba, por supuesto, los distintos niveles de pensamiento de la taxonomía de Bloom. Por esto se puede afirmar entonces que la implementación del aprendizaje invertido no solo incidió en el desarrollo de la competencia léxica en los participantes, sino que contribuyó positivamente al mejoramiento de desempeños en otros componentes de la lengua, a la creación de estrategias de estudio individual y grupal, la optimización del tiempo en el aula, lo cual es muy importante, y el fomento de dinámicas más analíticas. Agradezco mucho su atención. Estas fueron las referencias que se emplearon para esta presentación y acá se encuentran los datos de contacto. Muchas gracias, quedo atenta a sus preguntas.
Muy bien, Tati, excelente presentación, muchas gracias. Vamos a mirar algunas de las preguntas que tenemos en el chat. Déjame ver. Gabriela Roballo pregunta, ¿qué tipo de dificultades se encontraron en el grupo teniendo en cuenta la edad de los sujetos de estudio?
Bueno, una parte un poco compleja es que, bueno, con ellos ya se había trabajado durante un semestre con la modalidad de enseñanza tradicional, y pues también, digamos, como al recorrido que tienen estos estudiantes, es muy complicado llegar, digamos, a cambiar abruptamente la modalidad de enseñanza o el método, porque ellos ya están muy acostumbrados, ¿sí? Puede uno justificarles, demostrarles, y al final, aunque aceptaron y definitivamente dijeron, sí, efectivamente aprendimos, esto funciona, al principio cuesta mucho trabajo que ellos se puedan adaptar a este cambio. Entonces, pues lo recomendable sería de pronto hacerlo de manera progresiva y también pues explicarles las bondades y que todo esto pues está basado en bases científicas, ¿sí? No es algo que pues el docente, digamos, como que creativamente llega y quiere explorar en ellos, sino que, bueno, pues hay algunas justificaciones de base. Adicional a esto, pues bueno, también la cuestión de las edades, independientemente de incluso la asignatura, el hecho de llegar uno como estudiante joven a querer, digamos, intervenir en la enseñanza, en el aprendizaje y los procesos de un adulto, pues no siempre es fácil porque, bueno, para ellos es complicado pues ver que una persona menor que ellos está tratando como de orientarlos, dirigirlos y decirles cómo hacer las cosas. Entonces creo que eso es lo principal, pero también... bueno, con el aprendizaje invertido es muy difícil toda la cuestión de la planeación y del tiempo en las clases. Entonces, principalmente eso.
Ok, déjame ver un segundito. Vale, aquí tenemos otra pregunta. ¿Cuál fue el reto más grande al implementar el aprendizaje invertido en la clase de francés?
Bueno, pues digamos que en Colombia yo no encontré antecedentes de la aplicación del aprendizaje invertido a la enseñanza del francés, únicamente del inglés. Creo que ya en el transcurso de esta investigación sí se han podido desarrollar un poco más, pero bueno, creo que... pues las dificultades en general, independientemente de la lengua, son básicamente lo que mencionaba. Pues primero el trabajo con adultos, el cambio abrupto de metodología, pero además que el aprendizaje invertido requiere un proceso de planeación muy arduo. El docente puede que no sea como la estrella o el centro, ya que ahora nos enfocamos más en las necesidades del estudiante, pero sí implica un nivel de responsabilidad y compromiso muy alto en la planeación de todas las actividades previas y las actividades de clase. Ya no es simplemente como que, bueno, yo preparo lo que tengo que decir y la explicación y listo, sino que tengo que estar presto y activo constantemente porque los estudiantes durante la fase de aplicación ellos requieren mucha ayuda y entonces todo el tiempo están pidiendo que uno vaya, se sienten como más cómodos al preguntar, pues cuando están en pequeños grupos que cuando están con el grupo completo. Entonces, toda esta parte de la planeación, hay alguna modalidad del flip learning que es el in-class flip o las station rotation, en las que pues si se planean o si se decide hacer estaciones, por ejemplo, 5 estaciones con diferentes actividades de aplicación, pues es casi que hacer 5 planeaciones de clase distintas. Entonces, esto es un trabajo muy arduo. Adicional a ello, pues en este caso, la introducción de los contenidos se realizó con material virtual. No siempre se requiere que sea virtual, pero en este caso se hizo. Y bueno, a veces es difícil manejar con los adultos la tecnología porque ellos, bueno, no están acostumbrados y no tienen dominio de ella. Entonces, estas fueron las principales dificultades.
Ok, Tatiana, muchas gracias. Tenemos más preguntas en el chat de Facebook, de YouTube, perdón. Cuando puedas, te pedimos que ingreses ahí, contestes las preguntas para nuestra audiencia. Y la última pregunta te la va a hacer el profesor Carlos Carrillo.
Okay, Tatiana. Well, the following question, this is an ELT Congress, but well, it is likely that in the following, well, versions of this Congress, we're going to be having like different languages. It's for that I'm going to ask you in French, okay? Bon, donc on va continuer. Seulement, je vais vous poser une question parce qu'il y a des profs ici, des personnes qui sont intéressées sur, bon, connaître un petit peu sur ce que vous avez fait, oui, mais ça veut dire, bon, quel a été, ou comment est-ce qu'il peut bien être possible, bon, aider les la motivation, ce processus de motivation pour le CELEF, oui, avec cette méthode que c'est une chose totalement différente et a été désignée pour l'enseignance de l'anglais.
Excusez-moi, je n'ai pas compris la dernière partie. La motivation, mais je n'ai pas compris en anglais?
Non, si tu as déjà nous avais dit que Bon, ça a été designé pour l'anglais, oui. Donc, ça, c'était la première fois que tu as eu l'expérience d'utiliser le en français, oui, pour enseigner le français. Donc, comment est-ce qu'on peut utiliser le, mais en temps de, bon, aider les élèves et force la motivation?
Ok, ça, ça a été magnifique parce que avec l'implémentation de la classe inversée, les étudiants doivent être, disons, beaucoup plus actifs. Alors, de cette façon, ils vont être beaucoup plus motivés, spécialement dans la classe, dont on doit toujours faire des choses, des activités. Alors, ils doivent être totalement conscients de tout ce qu'ils vont faire avant. Et aussi parce que ils savent que s'ils sont vraiment préparés, qu'ils ont vu les vidéos, alors ils pourront participer activement de la classe et ils pourront réellement, je sais pas, apprendre. Donc, ça a été la principale motivation, le développement de l'autonomie, parce qu'avec cette méthodologie, disons que le centre, c'est l'étudiant. Donc, de cette façon, on peut beaucoup plus motiver parce que dans la classe traditionnelle, ils sont très passifs, ils sont toujours en train de prendre des notes, tandis qu'au moment de la classe inversée, ils commencent à pratiquer, ils commencent à être toujours actifs et donc ça améliore la motivation, bien sûr.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Tatiana. Et avec ça, on a fini avec Bobo. Well, she was just telling us the importance of fostering the autonomy in students' development and how everything is going to be centered in, well, students' performance and how to encourage them to be the center of it, like to switch what they are used to facing the classroom and what they are responsible for also at home. So thank you very much, Tatiana, for being here with us. Professor Clara Natra.
Thank you. It was so great to listen to you both speaking in French. I don't know any French. Je ne sais pas parler français. So I just want to say, or quiero decir, en este congreso teniendo en cuenta lo de Karen, multicultural y multilingüe, no sé. Tatiana, felicitaciones por tu trabajo. Realmente dirigir tu tesis fue una experiencia maravillosa. Entonces, me alegra mucho que hayas podido también hacer parte de este evento, que aunque es Research in ELT y nos enfocamos como en inglés, pues realmente fue muy bonito haberte tenido acá y también pues como complementar lo que hace el programa, ¿no? La licenciatura en español y lenguas extranjeras. Entonces, felicitaciones una vez más.
Mil gracias a ti, profe, y a todos ustedes por permitirme participar de este evento.
Ok, listo. Ahora nos vamos con la parte final. Profesor Sandra Palencia.
Yes, we are going to have our last conference, the closing conference, which is titled What I Have Learned as an ELT Undergraduate Research Advisor by Professor Miguel Ángel Carranza from El Salvador. Professor Clara Natra is going to introduce him.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, Tatiana, stop sharing your screen. Okay, so we are going to conclude with a great talk by Professor Miguel Carranza. He is from El Salvador. And I'm going to introduce him. He has a college teaching experience at Universidad de El Salvador for more than 2 decades. He is the former coordinator of the BA in English Language Teaching and former coordinator of the Master's in Translation. He has a master's degree in Science of Education through a Fulbright scholarship in 2001, University of Kansas. He holds a BA in English from Universidad de El Salvador. He has participated as a speaker at Universidad Don Bosco, Centro Cultural, and Universidad del Salvador. Mex TESOL 2010, Panama TESOL 2014, Honduras TESOL, HELTA 2018, Bolivia TESOL, Beta 2019, and in public and private institutions of the country in the last 20 years. He has taught different courses: English composition, language methods, research methods, pronunciation, readings and conversation, and at the master's level. He took a course on curriculum design from University of South California in 1992, 1993. He took AE online courses on language assessment from the University of Baltimore, 2012, and one on educational technology in ELT 2020 from Iowa State University. He has attended TESOL conferences in Guatemala, Mexico, Panama, Honduras, and the USA. He has strong interest in oral proficiency and fluency, extensive reading, and leadership in general. So it's a pleasure having Professor Miguel Carranza here, and especially because this event is giving a special emphasis on the undergraduate research that we are carrying out in this moment. So as the title of his presentation, he is going to present to us the experience of being a research advisor. So Professor Miguel Carranza, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you for the invitation. A pleasure to be here. It's a privilege and also a challenge to be presenting here at the Universidad Libre in Colombia. I said a challenge because I know Colombia has pretty advanced education, and the three previous presenters have shown me that. I have enjoyed and learned with their presentations, so congratulations to the three former presenters. I'm going to start sharing my presentation. And professor at the Universidad de Salvador. And let me give you, well, actually I need to tell you something that I will talk from my experience advising the students and the knowledge I have gathered in the past 10 years of, I think I've done some systematic observations, the analysis, and the guidance that I have had with different groups, with many groups. At the end of the PowerPoint, I present a sample of the bibliography of the students' research, what they have done, and you can see the different types of topics that they have researched. So I do not intend to teach any particular approach or favor a specific method or any theoretical approach, but rather I'll tell you from my experience what I have learned. First, I'll give you some basic information. I will give you some background about my institution, about my university. Well, first, I'll tell you a little bit about my department. The Department of Foreign Languages is home to around 1,800 students. I think in some years we got close to 2,000 students. It's a big department. We have a lot of students. And the reason why is, I think, is because there's this belief that like students could get a degree and the students could also find a job easily and start helping their families. My university is home to 50,000 students, but we have 3 other regional campuses, but they're small. And it, like I said, is the only state funded university. In my department, we have 2 academic majors. One, mother languages. They teach French and English. They specialize in that. And the other one is the BA in English teaching, which is the BA I have been coordinating. Something kind of peculiar, and probably you would say that it's a little old-fashioned, and I agree with you, is that after 5 years of academic study, students are asked to do their required graduation work. It could take from 6 months to 3 years to do this. With the students I advise, we try to do it as fast as we can, but we try also to have certain level of quality, because I don't like them to spend too much time, like 5 years of courses and then 3 years of doing their thesis. Is too much, right? So I like to do it probably, they will finish like in 6 years, ideally. So I like to do that. Now, like, as I said, I'm going to share with you what I have found useful, what I have found interesting in the research that I advice with my students. And one of the things that's very important, and you have probably realized, is that demographics are very important. Demographics refers to particular characteristics of a population. By Neil Salkind. He happened to be a professor at the University of Kansas, and I like his research class a lot. Unfortunately, he passed away several years ago. But demographics are very important, as I say, right? I think demographics are key in understanding the whole population and the whole problem, and can help you with some correlations you can have or you could create. First, it's important to understand the gender of the population of the sample you are working with. And I have realized, and research tell me, and statistics tell me, that in my department, most of the students, the majority of the students are women, female. I think in mother languages, we have more women, probably close to 65% to 35% of male. In the English teaching, could be 55 to 45. And even in the university in general, I was reading that there are more women than men studying in college. It's like 22,000 to, with just a few, the difference is a few hundreds in the different, but still there are more women in general in college, which is also good, right? It means women are making a big progress in our society, and it's important to have educated women. Another important aspect, well, it's age, a key factor. And I realized in my university, we usually work with the typical college student, the young student, probably they finish when they are 23. And in the past, this was different, but because of probably the situation, the violence in the country, we stopped offering courses in the afternoon. And we mostly have courses for full-time students, not so many for part-time students, particularly in the first years. Another important aspect is the place of residence. Do they live in the city? Do they live in the countryside? There's this belief, or even there's probably some background about it, that if they live in the city, they probably have it easier because they have better resources. They have even a place where they could find a cyber cafe or internet cafe where they can do their work, as opposed to in the countryside, especially if it's a far away place. So it's important to see where they come from, and it's important to notice, to notice if they are if they have a job or not. That's also important. And I realized too that after the third year, many students, because they have improved their English or they have improved their French, they start applying for jobs in a call center. And most of them do it because they need the money. Their families need the money. The families need the support. So, but I realized that happens particularly after the third year, and it happens more frequently in the fourth. And in the fifth year, most of them are working, which is good because they're helping, they have a job, they have an income, but it can affect their studies, right? But like I said, it's positive because other measures like sociology, anthropology, psychology don't have that chance, I would argue. I think there's this interesting question on how much time do students commute to the university as a factor. And although there are not many, but there are some students who, for example, last semester I had this student who had to get up at 3 a.m. to be ready for his 6 o'clock class. So he would probably travel 2 hours by bus on the way to the university, another 2 hours on the way back. However, this was a very devoted student, and he was having a successful academic life, let's say. Also, marital status is important to find out they're married, single. When they are married, they usually have more obligations or more support to do at home, right? So it's important. But in the research that I have, or the result of the research, most of the students are single, big percentage. Another important factor to study, and I think I noticed that in the research that was done by the previous presenter, is the socioeconomic factor, SES. that plays an important role in a student's success. It does play an important role. However, doesn't mean that it's going to be like that. It's going to be a determining factor. It just plays an important role, and we should watch out for that. Within the socioeconomic status, we have parents' level of education. Also, research says that if parents are educated, if mom and dad, if there's mom and dad at home, and if they went to college, so the expectations are probably higher for the student. If mom and dad have or even a high school degree, they can support, or they can encourage, they can motivate the student better. So it's important, right? If we have this factor at home, but like I said, it's not a determining factor. Now, family income is another key socioeconomic factor. If the family has the resources, they'll be able to buy a computer, to have it connected to the internet, to have a nice cell phone, which is very useful in these pandemic times. And unfortunately, in my country, not everybody has had that chance, has that chance of having all these resources. I said I work in the public institution, the only public institution, and most of the students, I would argue that they are low class or middle class, so they don't have a lot of resources. Another factor to take a look at is where the institution, the high school institution, where they come from. Is it a private or public? Well, there's this idea, probably some research can back it up, that students who come from private universities, private high school institutions are better prepared than those who come from public. Although there are exceptions. I have noticed that there are 5 public institutions in my country that send very good students, very devoted students. But I have also noticed that some private institutions, particularly some Catholic or religious institutions, also send very good students to the university, to college. So these are socioeconomic factors, are important factors to take into account to understand the problem, to understand the sample. More ideas or more things that I have learned through research. I've also learned that study habits or strong academic skills are very helpful to have success in school. Some of the research that I have advised tells us that, for example, ML means modern languages students. They study from 3 to 4 hours a day, which is a very, I would say, a relatively high percentage of hours that they are devoting a day. Is because they have to study English and they have to study French. And the students who do this, they tend to be successful. They tend to pass and graduate, pass their courses and graduate. And they apply a variety of strategies too. Yeah, they watch YouTube, they listen to music, they read the lyrics, they study alone, they study in groups. I mean, they use a variety of strategies, and this helps them improve. Also, there's this other interesting research. Probably could be a little, let's say, not that scary, but with first-year students, that they are connected to the internet or on their phones like 6 to 7 hours a day. It could be positive, but it has its dangers, right? Like but you probably have seen this, that the new generation spend too much time on their phones, are too much on the internet as well. Well, I have a daughter who is a high school student, and I see her that she spends too much time. I'm not that happy, but she argues that it's for studying, and probably some of that is for studying. Another factor or variable that I have noticed is that I have been taking a look at high school standardized test scores at the University of El Salvador entrance exams grades and the students' GPA or grade point average. And what I have seen is that these are very useful for prediction. Like if they get, for example, a grade of 8 out of 10 in the national standardized test, an 8 is a very good grade. Students will usually have a very good GPA. And sometimes, based on the observation that I've done, is these students graduate with honors also from the university. And it's because they have these strong academic skills, right? They know how to study, and they apply it in college. So it's kind of obvious, right? When you see that they have these high grades here, is because they study, they are devoted. And like I said, this is useful for prediction and for some correlation. Yeah, this information can help you to state some correlations. Like I said, like I can say that students who have strong academic skills, who study a lot, are likely to have better grades or higher grades than those that study only 1 hour a day. But then again, correlations are not causations. We have to look deep into the analysis. Just because we have this situation doesn't mean that it's because one thing is causing the other one. It could be that students are really brilliant as well. Okay, let me go to the next. In terms of technology, and I have also noticed this, and I have also noticed also with my daughter, like when she does her English homework on the platform, like students improve their grades and improve their learning, and they develop some sort of independence. And this has to do with the time they spend on the platform, or the time they spend studying, right? So this is also useful. It shouldn't be underestimated. And you probably know this in Colombia, right? And also the research tells me that a teacher who takes into account affective factors and applies them into a classroom has a chance to have a better classroom environment. Unfortunately, like in my country, there are colleagues who say that affective factors, no, that's not important. The teaching is the most important. The content is the most important. They shouldn't care about students' feeling. And that's a big mistake, because affective factors are important to have a better classroom environment, and this is likely to cause learning in a faster way. And the students benefit from this. There's a better rapport there. Like I've been saying, research has helped me understand students better. You get a better picture of your class, of learners in general, of students of your department. You can get to empathize with the students. Like I also had a student last semester, and last semester, the pandemic started. This student sent me all their homework handwritten. She could not type it. Probably she didn't have any resources, but she could upload it in the Google Classroom. But I realized that most of all her work was done handwritten. Obviously, an economic problem there, because they couldn't have to buy a computer. Yeah, okay. Something else that has helped me understand has to do with the level of English students are achieving. There's different research, and even my students have conducted it, but that's importance of applying or doing different research. There's one group that says our students in the fourth year, they reach a level of A2. I didn't believe that. I think it's very low. But I do believe in the other research conducted by other groups that say that they achieve a level of B1. A good percentage achieve B2, and a few percent or a little percentage achieve a C1 level. Not everybody is achieving C1, although we aim at C1, but not all of the students achieve it. I have also, through research, one can learn new techniques, ideas, and approaches for teaching, see the importance of technology, or the importance of applying or complementing your classes with technology. So research helped me to confirm my hunches, your ideas, your beliefs. Oh yeah, this is true, right? Yeah, the affective factor is very important. Even using some repetition drill can also be important in class, right? This is based on the literature and also on the research as we carry that. So yes, research can help you become better at teaching. Yeah, you should be reading recent articles or attending conferences and some professional development, and then get to be exposed to the latest ideas, right? So, and this will help you to become better at teaching. And I particularly believe that that's true, and that has been my case. You can also share your ideas with other colleagues, so your colleagues can benefit. Not everybody is like sort of open-minded to listen to you, but if you start presenting this to other colleagues, or you write it, or you make it systematic, or you make it, you start using it in your institutions, yeah, in fact, you can be creating new knowledge and theory, and you can be improving the educational environment. Like these ideas of the exposure to the language, I+1, or a lot of input, a lot of particularly authentic input, right, should be very useful. The idea of extensive reading, or reading outside the class, is also very important. And these ideas of schema activation are very important, right? And everybody should be using them. So the research helps you consolidate good teaching practices. It helps you to be critical of where you're working, to find out some areas of improvement, and you say why this is happening, why students are not achieving the level they should be achieving. You can, based on the conclusions of the research, you can see the implications of this to your case. Like in the research that I have advised, we have been paying attention to the labor market. And sadly, I would say, I mean, there are jobs for graduates, but there are not a lot in my country. There are not many opportunities in different fields as a student would like. Most of the graduates get jobs in the call center industry. And the call center industry is tough. I mean, the pay is pretty decent, $600, $800 a month, but it's stressful. It's not for everybody, right? Plus, it's not, these are not jobs for professional people, I would argue, right? You can argue with me, but I think that, I mean, that's what I think. English teaching majors offer more jobs in teaching English in different levels, children, young adults, and then also you can also be teaching adults. So they have an advantage, let's say. David Gradle, in 2010, in his research, The Future of English, he states that English is still gonna be very strong for the next years, and there are gonna be jobs for English teachers for many years to come in the region, right? Probably the next 15. And I have seen that in my country. There was this big boom of language academies, and everybody knows that learning English is very important. And now there's more emphasis of teaching English to children, which our educational system does not cover it, but the private sector is doing that. They're teaching English to children in the private sector. And you can even, some students are even teaching content in English, like they are teaching science, literature. They get the certification to become teachers, but then they get the courage, or they are asked to because there are not many bilingual teachers in the country who could teach this, even like sort of basic science in English, or basic social studies, for example. So I've noticed that the satisfaction in graduates of English teaching is high, because like they have the profession, they have jobs. Although the pay is low, but there are jobs, right? And jobs for mother languages major, like I said, mainly in the call center industry, few of them would go in language academies, teaching English, teaching French as well. But there's some dissatisfaction with the major. And even though the major is demanding, the entrance of the major is demanding, because close to 1,000 students want to enter. At the end, only 100 are accepted. So only the ones who get higher grade in the entrance exam are accepted. But there's this dissatisfaction in some of them. Now, what has the pandemic taught us or taught me? And we have done this little research. This is from the from the government. Like only 20% of the homes in the country have residential internet. So it's really low, and it's worrying. And And we have also seen that in the university. With some other colleagues from different universities, we administered this survey to 1,400 college students. And we realized half of them do not have residential internet. They have to pay internet plans. And these plans cannot help them sometimes with Zoom sessions or uploading videos. They run out of their plans, so they are spending some money, and there's this complaint. And by the way, coming back to my student who gets up at 3 a.m., he had a smartphone last semester, but then the phone got damaged. So he probably had it with internet access or some internet access with a plan, but then he told me he couldn't do much. So at the end, he sent me some of his compositions via WhatsApp, because I knew the guy was a hardworking guy, and I'd help him. Didn't get a high grade as I expected, but he passed the course, and I hope he's still studying in the major. What kind of work do students do in my institutions? Most of the students conduct most of the research. Most of the research is done at the university for practical reasons. Students don't want to spend much money, or sometimes it's difficult to do it outside the university. Also, the violence could complicate things. But before the coronavirus, most students would do descriptive research, which they would just describe the population or phenomenon studied. Few of them would do experimental research, but then we still have to know a lot about the test, the statistical test, and even myself, I'm not that much prepared with this experimental or the tests that are done in experimental research. But most also used a mixed method design. And I asked them like to have like a survey with a lot of the demographic information that I talked about earlier. Right now, during the pandemic times, there are students have been asked to do bibliographical research. It's very difficult to do field research, let's say, but many are not used to this type of research. They don't know it because they were taught to use traditional approaches. So they, even though it looks easier, they are struggling with this research. They haven't seen it. Now, this is the advice that I would give, although some of you probably know it, is that check for bias. Sometimes we have our prejudices and we think that our prejudices or ideas or assumptions are correct. Like the case of our language school, there was this belief or this rumor, rumor that the language school was not doing a good job preparing future teachers, preparing pre-service teachers. Students would complain a lot about the tutors they would get. But after some research that one of my students conducted, I realized that this criticism was just small, probably like a 10%, probably. So it was not like that, right? The research could help me. Of course, this is just one research. We need more to understand. So we have to be open-minded, willing to accept criticism, and not taking observations personally, particularly when a tutor makes an observation and criticizes your work. We need to be humble and say, well, yeah, we can improve this. Another idea is to learn to soften the language, to judge others. And because people are really sensitive sometimes, and sometimes we don't have enough data to be making these strong statements. Once I remember I have read something like teachers are not prepared for teaching children. And it was, for me, it was kind of strong. I said, maybe you could say that teachers need more professional development in this area, because I think it was in one of the conclusions they were criticizing other colleagues, and I said, maybe you want to say it in a different way, don't be that harsh. Yeah, maybe we Salvadorans sometimes can be like that, or we haven't been taught to say things in a different way. Another idea, another point is do not generalize if you do not have enough data. Sometimes students come here and generalize, say, oh, no, yeah, this group was really bad, or this teacher didn't teach very well, or the teaching in these groups is bad, but they only observe 2 groups out of, let's say, out of 20. So it's probably not enough to be making this generalizations or statement. Another good point is that writing well is very important, as you know. Writing in an academic style, also very important. What I also realize sometimes is that the research team is not fully aware of the conclusions or the implications of the research. Sometimes, like, I know more about the research than the students themselves, and I don't like that. I tell them, well, they are the experts. They should fully understand, and they should make the research their own and understand it better, right? A good theoretical framework, as I have also seen, it's also very important. But remember that I think one of the presenters said it before, more research is always needed and encouraged. Action research, very important. I think the last presenter, Tatiana, I believe, talked about action research. And action research is not difficult and should not be difficult. You know, you find a problem and you start finding solutions and improve the situation in your country, right? Running out of time, and this is some of the bibliography, some of the research that students have conducted and that I have enjoyed and that I have learned advising. So thank you very much for the invitation. Thanks, thank you, Universidad Libre. Thanks to the member of the organizing committee, Professor Carlos Carrillo, Sandra Palencia, and Clara Onatra. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was a pleasure to share this with you all.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Miguel Carranza. It was very enrichful having your experience from El Salvador. So thank you so much for being with us. And here we have some questions from the audience. On YouTube, Dyer is asking, what is the best technique, like based on your experience, what is the best technique to teach another language?
I remember once I asked Jack Richards this question, like if the inductive approach is better than the deductive approach, and he said learning is a combination of methods. So it's a combination of techniques, it's a combination of ideas, combination of techniques, combination of methods in order for you to make learning happen. But you require motivated learners. You require learners with strong academic skills in order for them to be successful.
Okay, okay, thank you so much, Jack Richards. Okay, another question in here is from Angela Villarreal. She says, do you consider that studying through platforms lowers the academic quality?
I think, well, learning should be combined, should be blended, right? And in this times of the pandemic, I have realized that that a platform can help students study more. So you teach your class, but also learners are spending time on the platform. And like I have seen it with my daughter, like she has to become some sort of independent learner. She gives the answers on the platform. Sometimes she gets it wrong, but then the platform gives her feedback. So let's say, hopefully she's learning, but then I also give her some feedback, or ideally her teacher would also give her this feedback. But I think platforms can be very useful because students spend more time. It's part of the study habits, part of the time they spend studying.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Okay, another question here by Lynette Gomez is, what should be the attitude of a teacher when he or she does a mistake in pronunciation?
A mistake in pronunciation?
Yes, in pronunciation.
And the teacher makes a mistake.
In here it says, what should be the attitude of a teacher when he or she does a mistake in pronunciation, makes a mistake in pronunciation?
Well, I think we should be humble and we should tell them, I mean, we're we're still learning. And so if a student knows the correct pronunciation, like I think there was a word that one of my students, he knew the pronunciation of cocoa, this drink, and I thought it was cocoa for me, cocoa, but he said cocoa. And but he did it in this nice way and gentle way, and I think I was also open-minded. So we should not be sort of worried by making a mistake. But of course, we need to prepare our classes very well. We need to check for the pronunciation before the class. But there's always this room for improvement, and we should learn from that mistake, and maybe take notes and double check, because sometimes there are differences in pronunciation, right, in American and in English pronunciation. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, and the last question from Lynette Gomez is, what is the best way for a 7 to 9-year-old to show interest in learning this language virtually?
For learning virtually, that's a good question. Right? How to motivate them? It depends on your resources, right? Like if they watch movies in English, or if they have video games in English, sometimes that's a motivator for many learners. If they have a chance to travel to countries where the English is spoken, that's also a motivator. And they see the need to motivate, they see the need to communicate. I teach teenagers in a private language school, but these kids are sort of middle class, and these kids are very motivated. But it was face-to-face education. It was not virtual. With virtual, you need a really good teacher to motivate the learners. If the teacher is not a very good teacher, the students will get bored and will probably not like the classes. So, but you still need to motivate them, right? Probably, I don't know, give them an award once they finish the course, give them, I don't know, buy them a shirt that they like if they pass the course. Sort of reinforce this behavior, let's say, in a behavioristic way. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that motivation is definitely a key word in this pandemic time that we are living right now. So
Yes.
again, thank you so much, Professor Miguel from El Salvador. It's an honor having you here. And now, so it was great having you as closing the event with your fantastic presentation. And now we'll have more information. So Professor Sandra Palencia, thank you.
Sure. Ok, pues estamos llegando al final de nuestro evento. Muchas gracias a todos los que nos siguieron por Facebook Live, por YouTube, a todas las personas de la Universidad Libre que nos apoyaron en la parte técnica, a todos nuestros colegas de Honduras, de El Salvador, de Panamá, de Costa Rica, de Colombia, por supuesto. Este ha sido un evento muy interesante. Hemos tenido presentaciones en español, en inglés, hablamos un poquito, o hablaron los que saben un poquito en francés, y tenemos aquí algunas de nuestras directivas de la Universidad Libre que quieren compartir con ustedes algunas palabras. Voy a darle paso a la doctora Marlene Aguirre, que es la decana de la Facultad de Ciencias de la Educación.
Buenos días aún. Buenos días para todos, para el profesor Miguel Carranza, buenos días. Le agradezco mucho en nombre de la universidad que haya hecho parte de este importante evento, así como a los otros profesores invitados de diferentes ciudades. Para mí es un gusto, un honor saber que creo que ya vamos en la segunda versión o tercera versión de segunda versión de este evento, que creo que es absolutamente fundamental para los estudiantes y para los profesores. Creo que nos une y nos da la oportunidad de hacer reflexiones frente al trabajo que se viene haciendo en torno a las lenguas y Y creo que como le oí al profesor Miguel señalar, en estos momentos el ejercicio de la docencia en momentos de pandemia y a través de estos sistemas exige un esfuerzo grandísimo por parte de un profesor, y casi que podríamos decir que esta es la oportunidad que tenemos para que veamos cómo estamos los profesores haciendo un gran esfuerzo, y es lo que se ha demostrado en el mundo, creo yo, frente a lo que se vive. Y hemos demostrado cómo realmente somos uno de los gremios más importantes en cualquier sociedad, en donde nuestros esfuerzos, los esfuerzos de los profesores no han escatimado en recurrir a cualquier tipo de herramientas de su casa, a robarle tiempo a sus familias, a robarle espacios a sus casas para poder atender las necesidades de los estudiantes y así responder, como lo decía el profesor Miguel Carranza, siendo un profesor excelente y manteniendo motivados a los estudiantes. Yo creo que eso es lo que se ha visto, y eventos como este son fundamentales para hacer un alto y hacer esa reflexión y un reconocimiento frente a ese trabajo. Obvio, un evento como estos que recoge a tanta gente y que se está haciendo a través de la mediación de TIC, nos da la oportunidad de consolidar lo que acabamos de señalar. Y es que efectivamente hay un gran grupo de personas que está trabajando en pro de mejorar los procesos. Y somos conscientes de que todo proceso tiene posibilidades de mejora, y en esa medida eventos como este nos dan esa opción. Quiero darles un agradecimiento muy especial, comenzando por las profesoras Clara Isabel Onatra y Sandra Marina Palencia, profesoras de mi facultad, de la Facultad de Ciencias de la Educación, quienes me llenan de orgullo con este tipo de cosas, con este tipo de eventos, con lo que hacen. Esto es maravilloso. Han venido haciendo un trabajo excelente, con un amor y un compromiso y una dedicación por la facultad, por la universidad, por la docencia y por las lenguas, por la enseñanza de las lenguas. Entonces quiero felicitarlas enormemente y me siento muy, muy orgullosa de que sean profesoras de mi facultad, obviamente. Y no puedo pasar por alto tampoco agradecer especialmente también al profesor Carlos Carrillo. El profesor Carlos Carrillo, que es de la Facultad de Ingeniería, pues para mí también quiero agradecerle, no dejar pasar por alto este momento, porque con el profe Carlos desde que iniciaron todo este trabajo, este ejercicio, hemos venido contando, y pues lo que les puedo decir es que obviamente me llena de orgullo señalar que Carlos fue alumno mío en varias oportunidades, en pregrado y en posgrado. Entonces para mí es todo un honor saber que hoy contamos con él como organizador de este evento y acompañarlo en lo poco que les puedo acompañar. Perdónenme que no los pueda acompañar todo el tiempo. Yo hubiera querido estar con ustedes todo el tiempo, pero ustedes entenderán que las labores administrativas le absorben a uno demasiado tiempo, y más en estas circunstancias. Pero los felicito a todos los profesores, y en especial también quiero felicitar a los estudiantes, a todos los estudiantes que se han unido a este tipo de eventos, porque creo que esta es la oportunidad para que los estudiantes reflexionen y miren hacia dónde van y vean cómo efectivamente estas son las oportunidades de cambio. Estas son las oportunidades que nos pone la vida, que uno piensa que son muy difíciles, pero que finalmente son grandes oportunidades para señalar retos y para mejorar todo lo que estamos haciendo. Entonces, felicitaciones, no los voy a demorar más. Quería solamente hacer eso porque no los pude acompañar el día que abrieron, pero no quería dejar pasar por alto sin darles un saludito al menos al cierre. Y agradecerles en nombre de las directivas de la universidad, del señor rector nacional, del señor rector seccional, del presidente nacional y del presidente seccional, estos eventos que hacen ustedes por la Universidad Libre, por la educación y por las lenguas extranjeras. Muchas gracias por invitarme.
Muchas gracias, doctora Marlene, por haber estado acá con nosotros en esta parte final. Realmente para nosotros ha sido un gusto enorme, especialmente porque le queremos dar ese énfasis al evento de la investigación que están haciendo nuestros estudiantes de pregrado. Entonces es realmente un trabajo maravilloso, totalmente valioso, que vale la pena compartir con la comunidad académica. Muchas gracias, doctora Marlene. Ahora le damos paso a la doctora Luz Dalila, quien es la directora del Centro de Investigaciones de nuestra facultad. Entonces, aquí está.
Hola, qué gusto verlos a través de pantalla, pero qué gusto verlos, de verdad, me da mucho gusto, mucha alegría que me permitan, Clara, Sandra, Carlos, ser parte de esto, ayudando, apoyando, motivando y siguiéndoles la corriente con todas estas actividades y proyectos y propuestas que hacen parte, como decía la doctora Marlene, de todo ese dinamismo y esa energía que ponen todo el tiempo ustedes en el trabajo conjunto con los chicos, con los estudiantes y con los demás profesores. Muchísimas gracias por propiciar este evento, por no desanimarse, porque esta situación no haya sido motivo pues de aplazarlo o de no llevarlo a cabo, sino al contrario, de buscar más estrategias, nuevas estrategias que se convierten en retos para todos. Muchísimas gracias a los invitados nacionales, internacionales, porque son amigos, se convierten en nuestros amigos, en nuestros compañeros, nuestros colegas, para conversar, para dialogar, para abrir espacios de reflexión, de diálogo, de amistad también, en todo este marco. Si hay algo positivo que ha permitido la virtualidad, es hacer amigos, ¿no? Encontrarse en otros espacios, pero con una sensación de amistad infinita. Muchísimas gracias por eso. Es el segundo encuentro que se realiza y sin embargo este segundo encuentro agarró muchísima fuerza, yo lo siento así, con mucha fuerza, mucha participación por parte de los estudiantes y de los profesores. Muchísimas gracias por ello. A la Facultad de Ingeniería, mi compañera de Centro de Investigación de la Facultad de Ingeniería, la doctora Silvia Garcés, también por el apoyo desde esa facultad a este encuentro, a este evento, por respaldar también a sus profesores, Carlos Carrillo, por ser como parte también de este pilar importante y esta conexión que tiene con la Facultad de Ciencias de la Educación, increíble. Muchísimas gracias por propiciar estos espacios de fortalecimiento a conversar y a reflexionar, como digo yo, sobre las enseñanzas de las lenguas extranjeras, tan necesario en estos momentos y siempre para la formación y la educación de todos, ¿no? De nuestros estudiantes y también de los profesores, de afianzarse mucho más en esta reflexión permanente de lo que es la docencia. Muchas gracias. Me da mucho gusto, de verdad. Reciban un abrazo enorme virtual a todos. Esperamos verlos muy pronto. Y bienvenidos a la Universidad Libre.
Ok, profe Carlos Carrillo.
Bueno, me corresponde en el día de hoy, en nombre de la directora del Centro de Investigación de la Facultad de Ingeniería, la doctora ingeniera Silvia Garcés, en nombre también de la señora decana de la Facultad de Ingeniería, la doctora Marta Rubiano, agradecerles por permitirnos, por abrirnos la puerta en este momento en el que el trabajo colaborativo interfacultades, interinstitucional, hace que la investigación crezca y se fortalezca. Qué interesante y cuánto hemos aprendido de estar trabajando juntos, de, bueno, cuánto nos puede contribuir el estar como facultades, como universidades, todos juntos en pro de seguir fomentando la buena educación y la formación en investigación. A todos nuestros participantes, por supuesto a la doctora Marlene Aguirre, también a la doctora Luz Dalila, muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos, por darnos su apoyo. Profesora Sandra Palencia, Clara Natra, todos nuestros ponentes internacionales y pues no pueden faltar nuestros ponentes nacionales, todos estos proyectos que el día de hoy pues nos dejaron un gran aprendizaje en el transcurso de estos días. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Yo les quiero, perdón Clara, les quiero pedir un enorme favor. En lo presencial era la foto ahí todos, ¿verdad?